Hello everyone and welcome to this video wherein I will be discussing everything about the prominent Indian MBA entrance examinations. I am Dr. Shashank Prabhu and I am the founder of Point 99 Learning. I have been a CAT 100 percentiler and have been training students for more than 17 years now. So let's look at these 12 exams that are there in front of us. Let's start with the most prominent test, which is the CAT. Now, CAT is basically a test conducted by the Indian Institutes of Management. It happens on the last Sunday of November. Now, what is special about this test is that it is comprising of 68 questions, which will translate into 204 marks, which means for every correct answer that you are going to submit, you are going to get 3 marks. Now, this test is of 2 hours with 40 minutes being given for each section. Talking about sections, there are 3 sections that exist, which are the VARC or the Verbal Ability and Reading Comprehension section, DILR or the Data Interpretation and Logical Reasoning section, and QA, which is the Quantitative Ability section. Now, there are 2 types of questions that you can see on screen. One is called the multiple choice questions and other is called the type in the answer or the TITA kind of questions. Now, the multiple choice questions are the ones wherein you will be given 4 options, out of which 1 will be right, and the type in the answer questions are the ones wherein you will be given no options. Now, in terms of your answer, if you have an answer, let's say for example, it is 160, then what you will do is you will click on 160 on the keypad that will be provided to you on screen and you will just submit that particular answer. And that is basically it. Now, in terms of the marking scheme, as I mentioned, for every correct answer, you get 3 marks. But if it is a multiple choice question and you get it wrong, then you are going to invite a penalty of 1 mark. So you'll get a -1 for every incorrect answer. In terms of the TITA questions, even if you get something wrong, it's perfectly okay because you are not going to invite any negative marks. If you leave a question, then there are no marks deducted from your score at all. In terms of the top colleges that are there are these IIMs that exist, which we generally divide into 3 brackets. The first generation IIMs, which include IIMs A, B, C, L, I, K, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, Lucknow, Indore, Kozhikode. The second generation IIMs, which include IIM Shillong, Raipur, Rohtak, Ranchi, Trichy, Udaipur, Kashipur, and the third generation IIMs, which include a lot of the new IIMs that you would have heard of, which include Amritsar, Bodh Gaya, Sambalpur, Sirmaur, Nagpur, Vizag, Guwahati. All these IIMs form the third generation of the IIMs that are there. In terms of the other colleges, the non-IIMs that exist, FMS and SPJMR are possibly 2 of the most premier institutes that are non-IIMs but are also very sought after. Also MDI, IFT, the IITs are all competent institutes. IMT, XIMB, IMI all have their cutoff somewhere in the 90th percentile range. There are a lot of colleges that accept the CAT, because of which who should take the test? Everyone who is a serious MBA aspirant, I would suggest, should take the test. Not because it is easy, it is reasonably difficult, but I would say that it improves your chances of getting an admit in that year itself. Now, let's go to the next big test. So, the next prestigious test is the XAT. Now, XAT is Xavier's Aptitude Test. It happens on the first Sunday of January. Now, every year it happens on the first Sunday of January. Last year, it comprised of 75 questions, which was part 1, and 20 GK questions, which was part 2. In terms of the timing, 170 minutes is what you get to solve the first 75 questions, and 10 minutes is what you get for the GK section. Earlier, they also used to have an essay section, but since last year, they have discontinued the same. In terms of the first part, there are 3 sections that are there, VA and LR. So, verbal ability and logical reasoning form the first part. Decision making is a section that is unique to the XAT, that is the second part. And QA and DI, quantitative ability and data interpretation, is the third section that you generally get. Now, the marking scheme in general is going to be +1 and -0.25 because each question is going to have 5 options. So, for every correct answer, you get 1. If for every incorrect answer, you get -0.25. For every option or for every question that you have not attempted beyond 8, you get a penalty of -0.1. So beyond a certain number of questions, you will invite a negative marking scheme for the unattempted questions as well. Now, of course, this is too complicated. We generally advise people to not worry about this at all and just attempt questions on their merit. So it doesn't matter if you don't attempt a question and still get negative marks. It's not a problem. So don't worry about that part at all. The important colleges or the top colleges through the ZAT are the XLRI Institute of Management, which include the Business Management Program and the HR program. So these two programs are the most prestigious ones through the ZAT, followed by XIMB, IMT, TAPME, MICA, Great Lakes, Somaya, GIM. All these colleges accept the ZAT in general. If there are any changes to this, I will let you know in the comment section. But for now, these colleges are locked in for the ZAT. Now again, who should take the test? Everyone. Why? Because you will look at the range of the colleges that are there, and this could be a very good backup for you when it comes to the CAT, especially if you are someone who is a scorer in the 90th percentile range. A ZAT might actually be a good test for you. I also recommend ZAT because it is a much more practical test compared to the CAT. ZAT consists of the VA, LR and the DM sections, both of which are very intense in terms of comprehension. So if you are someone who has a good acumen in terms of businesses, in terms of ethical and moral decision making, but you are someone who struggles with QA and DI, then this will be a more friendly test for you compared to the CAT. Now the third test is the NMAT. Now NMAT is known because it is conducted by GMAT 1 and it is considered by NMIMS and a lot of other colleges. This typically happens in a 45-day window from November to December. So this year it is happening from the 4th of or 5th of November rather to the mid of December. So that is basically the window in which NMAT is happening this year. It is a computer adaptive test, meaning that you are not competing with someone else with the same set of questions. You might be sitting next to each other, but you will be looking at a completely different set of questions compared to your neighbor. Now, why is this important? This is important because the test will judge you on your aptitude. It will not judge you on the basis of the people in your group who are also taking the test. So here we look at it as an adaptive test. The level of difficulty of the questions is predefined, and basis of your replies to the questions, your answers to the questions, you will be given a score on a particular band. Now there are 108 questions, 36 per section that you get. You have a choice of sequence. You will be able to attempt any section first, then second, then third. You will have to make this choice before the test begins, and the entire test goes on for 120 minutes. In terms of the timing that you get for each of these sections, there is one section called language skills, which has reading comprehension and verbal ability. You will get a bit of grammar, you will get a bit of vocabulary, fill in the blanks, and a lot of question types that will be a part of the NMAT. You get 28 minutes to solve these 36 questions. In terms of logical reasoning, this is slightly different compared to the CAT. You get questions based on arrangement, you get questions based on sequential output, you get questions based on data sufficiency, you get questions based on analytical puzzles, and a lot of question types that are there. So you get 40 minutes in terms of logical reasoning. You have to solve 36 questions in 40 minutes. In terms of quantitative skills, this is an equivalent of the quant section of the CAT or the ZAT that you would have seen. So it's very similar to that, just that there are a couple of big topics that don't appear at the NMAT, which include geometry and time, speed and distance. So for people who are scared of these topics, NMAT might actually be a good test. In terms of the score range, the band that you are rated on varies from 36 to 360. If you are looking at the cutoffs of the colleges that accept the NMAT, you will see that the cutoffs will be around the 210 to 220 mark for most of these colleges that you get. Of course, there are some colleges which will also look at your profile and then give you a score, taking in consideration your NMAT score as well, like say Flame for example. But NMIMS Mumbai is possibly the biggest college which accepts the NMAT. XIMB HR is again one program that you can go for through the NMAT, or XUB is what we are looking at. The Xavier's University Bhubaneswar is what you're looking at. Somaya is another big college that accepts the NMAT. Flame and Altera are also colleges that accept the NMAT. Now, who should take the test? If someone has an average profile, let's say for example, who does not have a 888 or does not have an 887 profile, you can take the NMAT as a CAT backup. The only thing that you have to understand in terms of the NMAT is that they are prone to making these changes to the admission process, like what they did in 2024, wherein they introduced another round that had a competency test and the cutoffs went way lower than what they used to be earlier. So you have to be mentally prepared for these kind of things. Also, NMIMS in general does not have a residential campus and it has significantly high fees. So you have to consider all these aspects if you are considering the NMAT. Now, the fourth test that I'm going to talk about is the next one in the big four, which is the SNAP. Now, SNAP is a test that is conducted by the Symbiosis University, and it is basically a portal to get admission to the Symbiosis Institutes of Management. Now, typically this happens in December. there are 3 different days on which this test is conducted, and you can take it in one or many of the slots. There is no normalization across slots. So whatever score you get, you are going to be, or whatever is the best score that you are getting, that is going to be considered when it comes to figuring out your percentile. Now the format of the test is very straightforward. You get 60 minutes to attempt 60 questions. So it is an out and out speed based test. In terms of the sectional split, you have 15 questions from general English, which will include mostly verbal ability. They have not been giving reading comprehension questions over the last few years, but general English will consist of a lot of vocabulary based questions, grammar based questions, some trivia based questions as well. 25 questions are from the analytical reasoning part, wherein you are going to get a lot of puzzles in terms of blood relations, directions, maybe a sequential output question, maybe something that is based on coding and decoding, maybe something that is based on arrangements. 20 questions are from quantitative ability, and again we are looking at all the major topics from quantitative ability that you would have studied for the CAT and maybe for the NMAT as well. The marking scheme is +1 minus 0.25 for this test. So that basically means that you cannot afford to make a lot of mistakes. Now the top colleges through the SNAP include SIBM Pune, SCMHRD Pune. So both of them are very prestigious colleges if you look at them in the grand scale of things. Typically their cutoffs will be around the 98ish percentile range at the SNAP, followed by SIIB, SIOM, SIDTM. All these are competent institutes through the SNAP. We also have an SIBM Bangalore that exists, which is also a decent college through the SNAP. And of course, there are a lot of colleges under the Symbiosis International University flagship, which will invite applications. So if you are interested in a particular thing, let's say, for example, you're interested in media and communications, there is a college for that. Let's say you're interested in banking and finance, there is a college for that. And you will get a lot of opportunities through the SNAP as well. Now, who should take the test? Similar to NMAT, whoever has an average-ish profile, anyone who does not have an 8-8-7 profile, 8 in 10th, 8 in 12th, 7 in graduation, should look at SNAP as a viable option, as a CAT backup, and I would recommend SNAP to a lot of people who fall in this particular bracket. The next pan-India test that we're looking at is called the CMAT. Now, CMAT, of course, was introduced as something that all the central universities could accept, but you have to understand that over the last few years, a lot of colleges have not been accepting CMAT, but it's a fine test which is conducted, which is taken by a lot of serious aspirants. Now, this test is conducted typically in the month of January or February, end of January or beginning of February. It consists of 100 questions, and there are 5 sections and 400 marks at stake. So for every correct answer, you get +4. Now, there are 20 questions each from these sections that I have mentioned here. So QADI is, of course, quantitative ability, data interpretation. LR is logical reasoning that we get. LC. Now, LC is language competency. So that is basically the verbal section. GA is general awareness. And in terms of I and E, this is a section that is very particular to the CMAT, which talks about innovation and entrepreneurship. The marking scheme is +4 for every correct answer, -1 for every incorrect answer. The top colleges through the CMAT include JBIMS, Sydenham, Somaya, Pumba, Wellinkar, and practically a lot of colleges that consider the CET as well. Now, this is a nice backup test for people who are looking at Mumbai colleges and have a below average profile. So if you fall into these brackets, do look at the CMAT as an option. That brings us to the 6th option, which is the MH-CET. Now, the Maharashtra MBA MMS CET, or the one that is commonly known as the MH-CET, is a very interesting test because it is taken by a large population because of mostly its timing. It happens in the month of March or April, and sometimes it can get extended as well, but typically it is conducted in the months of March/April, and it is taken by a lot of people. So 1.5 lakh aspirants typically take this test. There are 200 questions, there are no sections, there is no negative marking, which creates the perception that the test is on the easier side. Technically, it is possibly the easiest of the MBA entrance tests, but of course, you have to understand that the competition is also intense. There are 4 sections that are there, which we can divide the questions into. One section is the verbal ability section, then the visual reasoning section, which is unique to the MH-CET. QA is the quantitative ability section, and analytical reasoning is basically the logical reasoning equivalent of the MH-CET. In terms of the top colleges, you can look at JBIMS, SIMSRI, which is Sydenham, Pumba, which is Pune University MBA, and Wellinkar. There are many more colleges that accept the CET, but these are few of the prominent ones. Now, who should take the test? People who are looking at JBIMS should absolutely go for this particular test. JBIMS is one of the most prestigious institutes in the country. People are looking for Mumbai colleges and have an average profile as a backup to the main tests, as a last ditch effort to save your season. everyone should take the MH-CET who falls into any of these categories. The next one is an ambitious venture called the CUET. Now CUET basically came into prominence because TIS was accepting it, and it's conducted in the month of March. 90 minutes, 75 questions is the format. So it's kind of a speed test. Now 50 questions will be from QA plus DI plus LR, and 25 questions will be from English. So that is basically what the split looks like. 75 questions look like in this particular context. So you are going to get the split being in terms of 15 questions from one section, 15 from another section, then you will have 25 questions from English, and then the remaining questions will be from LR. So that kind of a split is what you get in terms of CUET. The top colleges / universities that accept CUET include the Delhi University colleges, the Banaras Hindu University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Jamia Millia University. So all these colleges accept the CUET. There are many more colleges that accept the CUET as well, but these are few of the prominent ones. Now, who should take the test? Now, of course, if you are not very competitive, you want to be a part of a university, you want a degree this year itself, and of course, you are not very confident about cracking entrance test, neither do you have a very good profile, you might go for the CUET because the competition is going to be relatively less, because a lot of these institutes are not very actively sought after by a lot of serious aspirants. So maybe CUET could be the answer to your questions. The next one I'm talking about is the MICAT. Now, MICAT is taken by a fewer number of people, not because it is a bad test, but because there is only one institute that considers the MICAT, which is MICA. So Mudra Institute of Communications in Ahmedabad considers the MICAT. It is one of the best colleges that you can think about if you are looking at marketing as a career option. This test is conducted twice, once in the month of December and another in the month of January. Typically, that is how the MICAT is conducted. Now, there are three parts to this test. One is the psychometric part, which consists of a lot of questions. 150-ish questions is what you will have to solve in hardly 20 minutes or so. So that is basically the psychometric section. There is a descriptive section, which is unique to the MICAT, and there is an objective section, which consists of MCQs. In terms of these sections of the objective part, you are going to have a divergent convergent thinking part. It's a very interesting thing. Do look it up. VA is the verbal ability part. QA and DI will be one section, and GA or general awareness will be one section. In terms of the way in which MICA shortlists people, they expect you to take one of these three tests that I have mentioned here: CAT, XAT, GMAT, and in addition to that, you also have to take the MICAT. Typically, the weightage to your CAT / XAT / GMAT score is going to be 20%, and MICAT is going to be 80%. So if you have scored somewhere in the 80th or 85th percentile, even then you should be fine. And if you can do well at the MICAT, you will be shortlisted. Now, who should take the test? Marketing aspirants who are targeting MICA, of course, you should be taking this particular test. Otherwise, you will not be eligible for admission. But this is basically how it goes. It's a decent college. Do have a look at the website. Do have a look at the roles that come on campus. If you are convinced with the roles and you think that you are going to do a good job, then definitely MICA is one of the best opportunities that you can get. The next test is something that we call ATMA. Now, ATMA again is something that a lot of universities, smaller colleges typically consider. It happens 3 to 5 times in a year. So it depends on how frequently they want to conduct it. That's how it goes. Typically, it happens 4 times a year, but 3 to 5 is the norm. Now, there are 3 hours, 6 sections. Now, there are not technically 6 sections. There are 2 copies of 3 sections, and you get 30 minutes per section to solve that entire thing. Now, there are 3 broad sections that are there: analytical reasoning, verbal skills, quantitative skills, and each of this section appears twice. And that is basically how the ATMA is conducted. If you look at the top colleges that accept the ATMA, they include Wellinkar, Pumba, which is Pune University MBA, and Christ University. Who should take the test? Backup options, if you are looking at, or if your CAT percentile is below 70, you desperately want to get into a college but lack the options and the profile and maybe the competitiveness that is required to crack the other tests, you can look at ATMA as an option. It will definitely get you into decent colleges. The next exam is very similar to ATMA, which is called the MAT. Now, MAT happens 4 times a year. Typically, it happens in the months of February, May, September, and in terms of the next month is December, right? So these are the 4 months in which MAT typically happens. Now, it goes on for 2 hours, and there are 5 sections that are present at the MAT. Now these 5 sections are language comprehension, data analysis and sufficiency, mathematical skills, intelligence and critical reasoning, economics and business environment. So these are the 5 sections that appear at the MAT. So if you are decent at these things, you should be fine. Now there is a composite score that you get at the end of the MAT. Typically it does not include the general awareness section that is there. So you don't really need to worry about that part, but it's okay. You can take the MAT. You are rated on a scale of 800 and then you get a percentile as well. Now there are 2 modes in which MAT is conducted. One is a paper-based test, one is a computer-based test. Whichever is the one that you are comfortable with, you can go for. Now who should take the test? Similar to the ATMA, people who are looking for backup options and whose CAT percentile is below 70, and even then you are looking at some options that will take you to decent colleges, you can look at the MAT as an alternative. The 11th test on this list is called X-GMT. Now X-GMT is conducted by the Xavier's University of Bhubaneswar. If you are looking specifically at the XIMB, right, Xavier's Institute of Management in Bhubaneswar, you can have a look at this particular test. It's typically conducted in the month of January. There are 4 sections, 120 minutes is what you get, 100 to 125 marks depending on the year. This is the pattern of the test. Now the 4 sections that we are talking about include quantitative ability, verbal ability, and learning and logical reasoning rather, data interpretation, and you have emotional quotient and general awareness. So that is basically one section which is unique to the X-GMT. There is sectional time limit. It is randomized and the marking scheme is of +3 marks for every correct answer, -1 for every incorrect answer. Anyone who is an XIMB aspirant, I would suggest that you take this test so as to improve your chances and show it to the university that this is something that you are very serious about. That is a way in which you can stake a claim on that seat in XIMB. In terms of the GMAT, now this is something which is an offbeat option for a lot of Indian MBA test aspirants, but the GMAT is also considered by a lot of prestigious colleges and programs in India as well. So we will talk about the focus edition of GMAT, which is the new edition that has happened. So throughout the year, you can take it at your will. You can just register for the test, and if you feel like it, you can take the test. If not, you can defer the test as well. But the test happens throughout the year at your convenience. It is a computer adaptive test. So like what we had discussed for NMAT, which is conducted by GMAT, GMAT is also conducted by the GMAT, and it is a computer adaptive test. The range in which you can get a score is from 205 to 805. So you are rated on a band. Earlier it used to be 800, but now because we are talking about the focus edition, the score varies from 205 to 805. In terms of the pattern, the number of questions that are there, you get 45 minutes for each of these sections. One section is verbal, which has 23 questions. The other section is called quant. There are 21 questions, and data insights will have 20 questions that will be a part of the section. In terms of the top colleges and programs that accept the GMAT, you will have ISB, which is possibly one of the prestigious names in the country that accepts the GMAT. SPJMR accepts the GMAT. XLRI also considers the GMAT for their GMP mostly, and IIMs will also use the GMAT score for their executive program. So if you are someone with more than 5 years of work ex, then these programs might actually mean something to you. So who should be taking the test? Now aspirants who are targeting global options, because your GMAT score is valid for 5 years and it is also accepted widely across global colleges. If you are targeting global options along with ISB, and if you intend or if you intend to pursue an MBA with 5+ years of work ex, preferably 2+ years is something that I have written here, but 5+ preferably, then you can look at the GMAT as an option. Now these are the major tests that you will have to go through if you are someone who is an Indian MBA aspirant. So do let me know in the comment section if there is some exam that you need more information about. I can help you with that. If you want me to just evaluate your profile, do let me know that as well. If you like the video, do leave a like and do share it with someone whom you think will benefit from this knowledge regarding all the MBA entrance tests in India. I'll see you again in the next video.